Good morning and a very good morning to you. This is the Daily Brief starting off right now. My name is Wafula. Our sign language interpreter is Muthoni Wagaki. Time now to have a look at some of the top stories that we are following right now. Education Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohammed is expected to appear before the Parliamentary Committee of the National Assembly, Committee of Education, to discuss, amongst other things, schools unrest. So she'll keep you up to speed about that. Remember that just yesterday, a number of students were arraigned in connection to the schools unrest in different parts of the country. So we shall keep you up to speed about how that has been going on. Meanwhile, Ministry of Lands will kick off today its lands verification process of the Embakasi Ranch. We shall keep you up to speed about that. And also the fact that Elgeyo Marakwet governor to appear before the Senate Accounts Committee. Without forgetting that the government insists that the Mau evictions must continue, something that has elicited a lot of reactions. So those are some of the top stories that we are following right here on the Daily Brief. And of course, we shall cross over to join our reporters on the ground to give us a feel of exactly what is happening. Now, remember, our Twitter handle is at K24TV. The hashtag is the Daily Brief. Taxi 9 is 21222. You can always tell us what is happening around you. Now, we're simply asking whether you support the government's move to continue with the Mau eviction process, something that sections of members of Jubilee have said violating human rights and, of course, being done in an inhumane manner, according to Elgeyo Marakwet, Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, and those who are in support of his sentiments. So just simply tell us whether you think the government should actually continue with that particular verification process. We're also following events in regards to the court process that is in Mombasa. We shall keep you up to speed about that. And then at the bottom of your screen coming up is Baraka Karama will be giving us an update in regards to the fire incident that raged some parts of the market there. We shall keep you up to speed about how that is going. Let's now get right into it. Before I even introduce the story that we did here yesterday in regards to matters Mau, joining us right now, we have Third Alliance Secretary General Frederick Okango, as well as Professor Jokoya. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Thank you. Now, the government has insisted that the ongoing eviction of those settled around the Mau forest will continue, with Rift Valley Regional Coordinator, that is Chamwanga, telling politicians to stop whipping the emotions of residents. He spoke as section of leaders from the region continued to fault the exercise, saying that genuine landowners were being uprooted from their homes, with officials estimating that at least 10,000 families will be affected. Franklin Masharia reports.
The last 2 weeks have seen a combined force of security officers from the police and the Kenya Forest Service comb the vast Mau forest, including Kosia and Koben areas, to flush out illegal settlers who had encroached on the catchment area. Matters came to naught after a section of Rift Valley leaders visited the evictees last week and alleged a political witch hunt, sparking off charged reactions.
Wamama watoto yao wanakufa wakati wanajifungua. Tell me, how is that against Jubilee policy? Kama mimi nimekuja hapa kusema hiyo ni mbaya.
But Rift Valley Regional Coordinator Mongo Chimwanga has told politicians to keep off the exercise, saying the evictions are unstoppable.
We are there. We are going to engage with all the stakeholders. Yeah? But first things first, where we agreed that people should not go beyond, please let them not go.
But leaders from the region, including Kericho Senator Aaron Cheriot, are standing their ground, protesting the alleged inhumane evictions.
Yes, there are people who have been evicted and do not live inside the forest. And that is why there's all this hue and cry.
We have all those records, but I can assure you, the number of people has tripled.
Chimwanga, however, insists that the government is already done with phase 1 of the exercise and is now preparing to kick off the second phase, which will include scrutinizing the title deeds of genuine landowners.
As a recommendation, we could look for some alternative place for them to, either it's bought.
This is a group of members of the Mau community staged protests in Narok town, expressing their support for President Uhuru Kenyatta's resolve to conserve the water tower. The evictions, which target at least 2,500 households, are threatening to precipitate a fallout in the ruling Jubilee Party, with Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen, a close ally of Deputy President William Ruto, being reprimanded by the party for failing to support the evictions.
There are channels that should be used to apportion the blame.
Will history repeat itself and make the Mau evictions the straw that broke the camel's back?
And that is what we are reacting to this morning. And we're simply asking you whether you support the government's decision to continue with the Mau eviction. This is in a bid to save the country's, one of the country's largest water towers, and something that has elicited a lot of reactions. You can get to talk to us on the text 9212222. The hashtag here being the Daily Brief, and our Twitter handle at K24TV. Now, like I'd mentioned to you, you're following quite a number of stories, including the fact that Mombasa County officials, as well as those of the Kenya Ports of Mombasa, Kenya Ports Authority in Mombasa, are in court today to determine, they were listening to the determination as to whether part of the management of the Mombasa County, rather of the Kenya Ports Authority, should actually be with the Mombasa County or remain with the Kenya Ports Authority. However, Judge Eric Ogolla has ruled that he's not in a position to determine who exactly should manage part of the ports, be it the Mombasa County or the Kenya Ports Authority. He has now asked forwarded the case to the CJ to actually constitute a 3 or 5 judge bench to hear that particular case. In the meantime, also in Kisumu, we shall be catching up with Baraka Karama of the fact that fire has gutted down business premise at Kisumu Juakali area, an auto shop and 4 vehicles also burnt. We shall keep you up to speed about what exactly transpired. Joining us right now, we also have current and political affairs analyst Karanja Tariki. Thank you, Karanja, for joining us. And in fact, I'll start with you. Should the government continue with the eviction process from the Mau?
Thank you, Ian, for having me. The Mau question is a very sensitive one in very many ways, given that the fact that it is one of the major water towers in the country, and given again that most of the squatters, so to speak, do not come from within the community. So there is a lot of things to play. The political arena is quite hot because the Maasais insist that with the Mara River originating from there, that they really would need that tower to be protected. And of course, there is the other communities that actually have inhabited part of that land. I think the issue is how this thing was sorted out from the word go. There is what they are calling the cut line. And the cut line is actually the buffer zone. And if that had been maintained from the word go, the encroachment into the forest would not have happened. So somebody slept on the
Let me hear from you, Frederick, because now that Karanja has mentioned the cut line, this seems to have put the area county commissioner, Mr. Natembe, against the politicians in that area. He insists the cut line was set clearly back in 2009. However, sections of politicians seem to believe that the T-zone is what should be the cut line, and anyone who is beyond that should be evicted. Your thoughts?
The county commissioner represents the government in the county.
Yes.
And when he speaks on behalf of the government. The politician has got personal interest, especially when it comes to vote. Mau is a political tool. In this country, there are 3 political tools. One of them is land, that involves the Mau and the forest, and the other one is the tribe. Now, first of all, what does the Constitution say about all this? Everyone, all of us have got a right to a healthy and clean environment. That is a fact. That's what the Constitution envisions in the Article 43. And that means for us to achieve, the healthy and clean environment, there must be certain obligations that must be done by the public and the state. State has got this obligation, and one of the obligations is to ensure that there is 10% tree cover in the land. The other one is to eliminate any process that will interfere with conservation of the environment. And lastly, in Article 69 also, the state shall ensure that it works with the public in the management, protection, and conservation of environment. Now let's go back to Mau, having laid that foundation. The Mau is a water tower that must be protected by the state. The reason why today we're having the issue, because this is not the first time, there are people who are brought into Mau and acquired land illegally. Remember what the state is supposed to do. Today's state is fighting.
Some of whom have title deeds, according to
some of whom have title deeds, which was acquired irregularly.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the case. So I want to stand with the government on this. The people who are occupying Mau must leave. And our party position is that Mau must be protected. We have said before that for us to even achieve the food security, then we must protect to the core our water towers. One of them is Mau.
Let me hear from you, Professor, because the political angle is seemingly coming here. And of course, the question as to why it's sort of pitting two sides within the Jubilee Party here.
First of all, I have to say this. Mau catchment area is the second largest catchment area in the whole of Africa. And the lifeline along River Nile, with the countries abutting River Nile, as far as Lake Victoria, depends on Mau. Now, if the government gave up title deeds to people in Mau, then the government is squarely responsible for the atrocities that are going on. I would like to side with Murkomen for the first time, especially and particularly when it comes to inhumane treatment of Kenyans. The Constitution is very clear. Article 1 of the Constitution talks about sovereignty and donation of that power. The people of this country have a legitimate expectation in the government. And where the government usurps power without following the due process, by coming in to evict people, whether illegal or illegal, without giving them an alternative, in itself is subject to the scrutiny, strict scrutiny, because it's interfering with the fundamental principles of and liberties of those people involved. And as such, if politicians had way forward, they ought to have gone to court to stop the whole thing. But however bad Murkomen is, of course I don't like him. On this one I agree with him.
Okay, we shall talk further about that. I'm sure Karanja and Frederick might have other reactions in regards to that. But in the meantime, like I'd mentioned to you, fire has gotten down business premises at the Kisumu Jokali area, burned down, including 4 vehicles and a number of shops in that particular area. Baraka Karama now joins us live from the scene. Baraka, what exactly happened, and perhaps what is happening right now as we speak?
Ian, I'm here at the Juakali area within Kisumu town, and a fierce fire has gutted down a business premise here at the Juakali area, raising down properties worth millions of shillings. 4 vehicles have also been burnt down. Remember, this is an auto spare shop, and as you can see behind me, our firefighters from the Kisumu County government are busy battling out just to try to put off the fire that is understood to have started last night at around midnight. So of course police are here at the venue. As you can see, there's a firefighter from the Kisumu County government trying to put off the fire that the cause of the fire up to now has not yet been established. Just allow me to get an eyewitness, the person who was here when the fire started. Just come, kindly just give us a brief. What happened? What time did the fire start?
The fire started at 11. Because the cause of fire we don't know yet, but tumepigiwa simu ati kuna fire hapa na kuna garage imeungua huko nyuma na magari, na hapa kuna spares za magari kubwa ndio imeungua. Yeah.
Hii moto ilianza saa ngapi, na pengine kama kuna mtu aliumia?
Ilianza saa 6 usiku hivi. Na kuna mtu mmoja alikuwa anaishi hapa ndio hajaumia sana. Amechukuliwa hapa, amepelekwa na polisi. Yeah.
Well, Ian, just an account from one of the eyewitnesses who was here. As you can see behind me, there are firefighters from Kisumu County government and trying to put off the fire. Police are already here at the scene just to control the crowd who have milled around this area. Smoke, as you can see, is still billowing from this particular building. This is a Juakali area where we have hundreds of Juakali artisans, most of them who are repairing vehicles in this particular area. So, of course, we are still here trying to monitor this particular event, and of course we'll give you an up-to-date information. Remember, nobody has been injured. Only one person who we understand that was staying in this particular building had minor injuries, and he has been taken to the nearby Kisumu Aga Khan Hospital. One person we understand has already been arrested in regards to this particular incident. Police are still investigating the cause of this particular incident. Ian, so of course we will give you an up-to-date information in regards to that particular incident here at the Kisumu Juakali area. Back to you, Ian.
Thank you very much. Baraka Karama confirms that one person has been injured following that fire outbreak that has reached down part of a market at the Juakali area, and property of a known value also destroyed. Cause of the fire yet to be known. So she'll keep you up to speed about how that transpires. In the meantime, we're simply asking you whether the government should continue, whether you are in support of the government's decision to continue with the Mau evictions. And I'm just going to read out Kipchumba Murkomen's stand as of 2 days ago, and he visited that particular area. He says, I was in Mau today, and my position on the evictions is as follows, that the best way to conserve the environment is to carry along the people who live around the forest. I don't believe the solution lies in using brutal force, including burning houses or any other form of human rights violations. He continues to say that 10 schools have been closed down, this affecting 4,000 children out of school. Women and the old are suffering for no reason. The best way to resolve the problem is for the concerned agencies to meet the people on the ground and devise solutions for the best interest of the current and future generations, Karanja. So he might not necessarily be opposed to the evictions, but it is the manner in which this is being undertaken.
Actually, that's my point. I think we all are unanimous, and I think Murkomen would agree with all of us. Yeah. We need that eviction. And this eviction of Mau Forest, like our good professor has said, we're talking about something of regional proportions. Okay. And Egypt, if you want to touch River Nile, Egypt cries. So this is a situation of a regional proportion. We can't stop Mau Forest from being from the evictions going on. At the same time, we cannot talk about providing alternative in the same sentence, and then you talk about illegal settlements. And
the question that perhaps government is dealing with, how then do you settle illegal settlers in the first place? And maybe even the verification process of that.
But that's my issue. If they are illegal, they are illegal.
Yeah.
So you cannot even talk about alternatives for an illegal settlement. That's my point. But I think what Murkomen needs to be very clear about, and I think in that statement you've mentioned is very clear. It's actually the manner that this is being undertaken. Okay. It's a question of human rights. Even if it is illegal or legal for that matter, I think the process and the planning, there were issues there. Like, for example, why do you want to do evictions at a time when schools are ongoing? You have a period in August when the schools are closed when you can do it. If you want to evict people, you must explicitly show that the way you are doing it...
Don't you see the government is in a fixed situation here? Because there are those who claim they actually are rightfully there, even having title deeds, and yet they say they need an alternative to go somewhere. But the government insists they're there illegally.
Well, this is a government against another government, because, I mean, if they have title deeds that were issued by the government, and the same government is saying now, we don't know you and we don't know your title, then there lies a problem.
Who is to blame here? Who is to stand for those who are right in the middle of this?
No, what I'm thinking is that for those that are legally with titles occupying those land, they need to be compensated by the government. You are the one that cooked this. You are the one that is going to. You are the one that is going to know how you're going to sort out that mess. So if there is a title there,
in that process, Karanja, government fixing its own mess, then it costs the taxpayer money, don't you think?
Well, it does. I mean, there are so many things that have happened in this country where I mean, it's costed us money. I mean, we've even made compensations at international levels, you know, of big proportions going into billions, and because the government goofed. So, I mean, we are starting to get used to it, unfortunately. But now, if somebody has a title, then that person must be compensated. If it is illegal, then you really need to move, and there can't be any alternative.
Frederick, is it a case of two wrongs making a right?
Yeah, and as I said, in this country, the three political tools, tribe, land, and things to do with the environment. I agree with what my colleagues are saying. In fact, what Murkomen is saying is what we call public participation. The Constitution states that the state shall involve the public in the protection, preservation, and conservation of the environment. Public participation involves educating them and telling them the benefits of conserving that environment. And if need be, removing them from there and taking them elsewhere where they can continue with their livelihood. Now, these evictions are happening at a time when the schools are going on. It is very cold season. There are young kids there. That is the only inhumane thing that we can see from far. But remember that we need to ask ourselves, how did they find themselves here? We have schools that have been built, permanent structures, by the government. We have people that claim to have title deeds. Who issued them? The government. So let's go back to the question you asked. Is it government fighting government? We have seen before, even in the Roraka land, where government is buying its own land, allegedly. So this is not a new, I mean, it's not something new. What we are saying is there are people who must have acquired this land or parcels of land within Mau illegally. They processed documentation to authenticate it and issued it to the people for political purposes. 2005, you remember, Kibaki and Raila Odinga, when the Mau started proper, it was a political tool. 2009, when Raila Odinga was now in charge of that project and he was instructed to ensure that people are out of Mau, when he raised it immediately, you know what happened? The Kalenjin community differed with Raila, and that is how Raila lost that block politically to date. The person who was leading that onslaught was one Isaac Ruto. When you remember the people who attended that rally, he was one of them. So what I insist on, Mau has been politicized. The only way that we can now save the over 11,000 acres of land in Mau to ensure that our water towers are safe is to follow the rule of law. The rule of law includes what Prof has said, humane treatment, the Bill of Rights, and again also involve the members of the public. These people, if today they are removed from Mau, where are they going to be taken to? The government should tell them where they're going to be taken to. That's why the politicians are angry, and they're saying, you cannot remove them from here and take them nowhere, because there are schools, there are small kids, there are pregnant women, and so on and so forth. That is what we politicians are saying. But I have to say that it has been used politically. So the politics of Kenya must change, even in terms of ensuring that we get what is constitutional right of us, like the right to have a clean and healthy environment. We cannot have because we are politicizing. I mean, we have to change. We must change, and we must change now. Otherwise, all the rivers will dry. Okay.
And Professor, we are reacting to the question here, is government fighting government because of contradicting information about those who've settled around the Mau? Are they there illegally? What about those who actually possess, title deeds, as they claim?
First of all, let me thank His Excellency the President for the stand he has taken in fighting corruption, and that is working. Corruption does not only mean stealing from the government, but it also means the government stealing from the people. And the root causes are what the President is standing for. I have never met Uhuru, but I like him now, especially for the last few months, what he's doing. I am in agreement, total agreement. And one other thing that I have also to exonerate him is that these problems were there before he came into power. the previous regimes have to answer these questions, because there was a time when roadside statements became the law. And I do not want to mention what happened, but people know that some leaders used to go to a place and they would say, where is the commissioner? Peana watu hiyo shamba. Wapi waziri ya nini, like waziri ya, where is the minister in charge? I want to see this happen. So the question is, if those political problems were insinuated by the very government, the then governments at that particular time, and then the minister for lands, Mr. Kimunya, who actually had this problem came as a result of him being the minister for lands. How do we now talk of these people who have been encouraged and given land by the government, and the government having the machinery to do land search, issuing them title deed, meaning they are ensuring that in case of anything, this title deed is legitimate, we shall give insurance on it.
Okay.
People settle, and then others follow them.
Yeah.
Because the government has given land to this group of people, other people follow them to settle within. Come on, let's have a break here.
Okay. And on that
The
note,
government ought to give an alternative. And this has been done in the US, whereby the US Constitution, which is or because of the supremacy of the Constitution and the 14th Amendment, they always say that every American belongs to America. And if there is any government action against any American, which is a legitimate action, then there ought to be alternatives. We cannot now come in and with those who are not there at that particular time and whip the whole thing the way it's being whipped. So here, I'm in total support of Murkomen.
Okay. And Kikwai C. Nicholas, on our question, simply is in agreement with you, says the government has a moral obligation to guiding lives, so it should provide alternatives. The problem with us Kenyans, we like waiting till there is a problem, then we act on it. Some of this can be prevented before they can happen, so this could have been prevented. And that is the question that he is taking. Simply, should the government continue with the Mau evictions? Your thoughts on the hashtag, the Daily Brief, our Twitter handle at K24TV. Texting 9 is 21222, and that particular Twitter poll is running with about 44 minutes left. So you can get to participate. I shall sample your views a little bit later in this live broadcast. Now, we're taking a short commercial break. We'll be right back to continue following these and other stories and making headlines as at this hour.